How you doing, everybody? Christopher Ian Bennett here with the Vancouver Film School Storyteller Studio podcast. Today, I'm going behind the lens, inside the mind of a really, really great photographer. And talking about storytelling, Mr. Erich Saide is a longtime friend of us here at the school, someone we've known a long time. Really, the reason I wanted you to do this show, Eric, above anything beyond your talent is, Communication Arts magazine is my favorite magazine. Mm-hmm. I mean, it is like bar none, I think the highest standard. Anybody who works in my space holds it in very high regard. And you, my friend, won the 58th annual, the photo annual, correct?
Yes.
And that is a hell of a thing. And that says a lot about your eye as a photographer. And I wanted our audience to get inside the mind of a photographer today, not necessarily a cinematographer, but someone who does truly photography work like you do. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Erich Saide, photographer Erich Saide. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me.
So, Eric, this is what's fun about you. You are here based in Vancouver, and yet your story begins in Kingston, Jamaica, man.
Yeah, man.
You're born in Jamaica.
Yes.
How the hell did that happen?
My dad was traveling the world and was living in Jamaica and in Guyana, actually, as well, and met my mom there. And from there, they moved to Jamaica, and he was part of an airline there. And that's, me and my brother and sister were all born there.
So who do you cheer for during the Olympics? Is that dependent on sports, or are you always a Jamaican or a Canadian?
I think depending on the sports, obviously bobsled is Jamaican.
I was setting you up for that one for sure, for sure. Yeah. But do you care at any point? Does it get where do your roots? How deep are your roots in Jamaica?
Oh, I would say Canadian
more
would
so
be what I'm watching for sure. Not because the Jamaicans aren't too far in the Olympics. So, yeah.
When did you know you wanted to get into photography? Because there's a real, we talk to a lot of industry creatives and storytellers on this show, and many of them with their craft are taking a lot of the stuff that exists up here and they're presenting it to the screen. And in your case, you do that, but you have a particular tool to do what you do so well that you've got to hold in your hand and you got to use it to bring it to life. And it must become like a part of you, like an appendage that's on your arm. When did you know this is what you were going to do with that?
Mine's I don't want to say strange story, but mine's one of those meant to be stories where I actually was the friend that always had a camera, but going camping, whatever, and taking pictures. And when I was about 28, I was in a car accident. And when I was off work for a few months, I just saw a beginner course. Never knew how to use the camera. Just wanted to learn how to use, aperture, shutter, whatever. How to shoot film and how it worked, the camera.
Yeah.
And then from there, I just kind of went to the intermediate course, and then really started liking it. I'm like, maybe I'll take night school, and then went to Langara College for a year or 3 years, but a year and a half in, when I started to learn studio lighting and lighting, that's when it really took to me, where I'm like, this could be something. And at the, 3 years when I finished all the night school, finished it, I was making a decision whether to try to go full time or could I afford to yet or survive.
And it just felt natural. It felt right.
Yeah, it just felt right. And a second car accident pushed me full time into photography.
You sure you need Uber more than anyone? It sounds like that would have.
They weren't my fault.
Yeah, well, that worked out, and you felt like this was your calling then.
Yeah. At that point, it was just kind of starving artist at the beginning, but then it just went, and it's been 20 years now, full time.
And full-time it has been for you. You've got an incredible resume. So while we're talking, I'm going to have Danny roll through some of your best stuff so people can get a sense of the different types of stuff you do. There's a real elegance, and there's in some cases, some of the photos I think really come from almost an Erich Saide brand, and others you'll try all these new things. You're one of those photographers who I've watched over the years, and I always feel like you don't have to go the same way if you don't feel like it, or if your subject doesn't, right? Do you ever feel beholden to a portrait style the way Annie Leibovitz does, or is it about the subject for you? Where does the Erich Saide style and lens, where does it come from?
I don't think there's not too much influence. Even when I was in school, there wasn't a lot of influence. I think a lot of how I shoot, and kind of always has been that way, is by a feeling. Like I'll see something, and if I like it, and if I'm doing it, and it works, unless there's something specific the client needs, and the direction, then we have to. Obviously that way I go with it. But when I'm just shooting, I think it's just more of I go by a feeling of how I'm lighting it and what's going to work for them. I don't really.
How much pre-thinking? You've probably done I would say thousands of headshots for aspiring actors, famous actors.
Yep.
How much pre-thinking will you go into your setup before you sit down with that talent? Do you let it just come to you? I've seen you work sometimes, and I feel like you were doing it right there on the spot. But sometimes it feels like you've been planning this out for months. Where is it?
Depending where it is, if we're shooting at my studio, I do have my go-to spots, which I know work.
Yeah.
And then I'll light those and make them, work for that. Or, converse with the client, show them some previous work, or get them to show me, hey, what would you like for yourself? And then I'll build around that as my inspiration. But on most part of it is, I'd say my go-to spots, or working with this wherever we are and finding something that works for me by a feeling again. And on the fly, as you said, like problem solving is one of my strengths. Yeah.
You did this really cool thing for Warner Brothers with Supergirl. I wanted you to tell that story. There was this incredible opportunity, and then I'll have them throw that photo up while you're talking about it. But it's not your lens and your creative view as a visual storyteller isn't limited to just the people. You took kind of the runway and the red carpet to a whole new level on this one, didn't you?
Yeah, and without kind of segueing back to what gave me some power in how I did that shoot. Is it okay to sort of backstory a teeny bit?
Yeah. Go ahead.
So, I mean, in October, I went to New York for my first time. And when I was there, I went there for inspiration, also to speak for, at a photo expo and some stuff like that. And one of the photographers that I wanted to connect it with, was on the same pro team, I stepped in his workshop because there's, like photography, one of the things I love is it's never-ending learning. You'll never know everything. Anyways, in his workshop, it inspired me to, I guess, go back to how I used to shoot, because I think I was getting in a bit of a rut.
Yeah.
And a lot of that was to do with your feeling and building it and creating as you're creating, as you're doing it. Fast forward about a month, Warner Brothers contacts me, and the guy has this concept, and it's for the Supergirl 100th episode party to shoot a gallery beside the red carpet. And it was really confusing at first, because there's this red cape he wants to do, and just how he explained it, I just didn't get it. But anyways, as we worked together, he had the cape created and flew up here from LA, and we the day of, we put the set together, and just even with him,
it looks so cool. We'll flash to it right now if it hasn't already appeared. It was absolutely mind blowing, because it was like, I think to me what was so interesting is you visualized something in your mind and you brought it to life, and we're talking like you and one other person. Like, this was not a massive Hollywood set.
No.
So I think that your story has more weight when people will see it here and go, holy shit, like that was a really incredible thing. Do you have a particular, when you're not, you shoot people all the time.
Yep.
That's work. Mm-hmm. Does it feel like work? And so do you prefer to just put the camera down when you're not working, or do you prefer to just not shoot people? Where do you keep that balance between loving the craft and not having to take your, 1100th snipe that day? Where does that feel for you?
I think when I'm not, I love shooting. I love working with people.
Yeah.
So that's what fuels me. When I'm not shooting, depending on what it is, if I was going on a hike or doing something like that, I bring my camera. But I got my iPhone with me all the time, so I am always taking pictures. Yeah. And that.
Yeah, and we'll link to your Instagram. You've got an incredible Instagram, and your eye is a lot of fun. Do you think, back to the headshot for a second, I want to ask you, we get a lot of actors who watch the show. We got a lot of students at Vancouver Film School that are breaking into the industry. Is the headshot, can you be really innovative and revolutionary? Does the industry require a certain standard that you feel you have to conform to? What's, in your estimation, someone watching, what are your tips for the boundaries of a great headshot? And we'll flash to some while you're doing this that I think you've done some really remarkable stuff that don't feel flat. What do you think about that?
To me, a headshot is a headshot.
And you have to have it.
Yeah, you have to have it. There's a certain standard that the agents want, and to help promote their talent, of course. A lot of this, I prefer to go a little more edgy with say portraits in that style, or if it's some of the edgier stuff might be more for the editorial aspect of the actors, where they're promoting themselves in a different arena like that, right? Yeah.
Like I there's the old, they pull in and you got to do those. I find that you've somehow been able to avoid that a lot. Do you pull them apart when they go there, or with you when you sit down to do it, do you never even allow it to get to that point in the first place? What's the trick there? Because I've walked by different places or studios, and I see them in the window, and I can say, I don't know who shot it, but I know that that's not an Erich Saide for sure. Yeah. How do you keep away from all those traditional pieces and fight the actors who feel like they have to do it?
I think it's part of what I do is bring my personality into it right away to loosen them up, I think.
Yeah.
But also, I do try to shoot everyone different so people don't have exactly the same thing, even from my own perspective, not forget about who else is shooting stuff.
Yeah.
So I like to keep it a little different based on who they are and where they're comfortable. And yeah.
I mean, there's a great one you did of Nickelback.
Yeah.
Fantastic. You made them look good, man.
That was pre-Chad haircut.
It was amazing. I mean, we have to flash to that one. I don't know if Dylan, you even know who Nickelback is. Do you know who they are? No. Yeah, exactly. But I love that one. There's some iconic, great people that you've worked with. Do you find that in the moment when you're working with them, Eric, do you ever the example I wanted to pull it, you had recently had a chance to shoot Jody Rabel Wilson, the former Attorney General of Canada, who was involved, the politician, who was involved in that incredible scandal, headline-grabbing, affair that weeks and weeks. And she's an amazing woman. When you do the photos, are you tempted to make? Do you feel like the story of what's happening to them in that moment has to shine through, or do they bring to And in that case, are you even able to say? I would be really curious. How much of the photo you did of Jody did she direct versus you wanted to direct? And do you ever allow some of their narrative of where they come from? Lori Loughlin, involved in some of those things, or do you let them just sort of be themselves? How would you approach something like that when there's so much weight of headlines around them?
Well, both of them I shot pre-scandal,
right?
So there wasn't a lot like.
You didn't have to wait.
I didn't have to worry about any of that stuff because.
But would you have? Would you have in those cases? There's got to be. Do you ever feel like I want to show Nickelback in a paradoxical or a contrasted way other people, the critics might be seeing them right now? Like, did you ever feel like you want to burst them and play against type ever? How does that go?
I guess if I was shooting, depending on what you're shooting for, it's probably for publication. If that's what they wanted, I would love the opportunity if they were allowed that to do that kind of stuff for sure.
Right, if they're open to it.
Yeah, if they're open to it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm at 100% the opposite of paparazzi, so I almost want to make people look in their best and shine.
Like put Nickelback in a bunch of Eddie Bauer and J. Crew.
Okay,
you know what I mean? Like
for sure,
right?
Sure.
Or something like that. It's probably a shitty example, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So you like to try things like that if you can. You'll go there, or do you?
For sure. I would.
Or do you? Is it about the essence of who the subject is and not muddying it with trying to tell a story that's maybe not there? I don't know.
I think I'm all open for that fight. I'm going to be honest. Back when I was in school, one of my key, if I had an inspiration or someone that was influencing me, was David LaChapelle. His photography as that photographer that's what he would do, and everything was a controversial how he created his work.
That's right.
So that would be my longest inspiration would have been that back in the day, and that brings back memories.
Going back.
Yeah. I would say if those opportunities were there to allowed by their publicist or whoever, that I'm all over that, or I would be if. Yeah,
that's cool.
A lot of that concept comes from them. Like a lot of that creative literally comes from their teams.
You're one of the noteworthy photographers who's now a member of the Tether Tools team. That's a pretty big honor. Tell me about Tether Tools and how that plays a part in the photography and the work you do.
So Tether Tools, I've been using. Tether Tools is a company that makes cables and just tools for if you're shooting photography, tethering into the computer.
Yeah,
so
the pro stuff, and it's big pro photographers count on it.
And I got on there. I've been using it for 10, 12 years, and I've been on their pro team. I got on last January, just a year ago. They actually asked me to be on their pro team, and that was quite an honor because there's 30 people in.
It's amazing.
Yeah, at that time there was 30 in the world, and I was the first Canadian on their pro team.
Dude, like I was saying, if you were a skateboarder and you had Vans or you had Quicksilver sponsor you, that's a rad thing. And Tether Tools, that's a big deal. Do you feel as your career now grows and you're good at this, you're in demand, people want to work with you? Do you find that more empowering and or restrictive in terms of you've got more people who want to weigh in on what the shot looks like in the end, right? Are there more cooks in the kitchen when you get to this level? How does that stifle you creatively, or how do you make sure that it doesn't?
Are we talking about shooting tethered or being part of the Tether Tools team?
Like publicists for the clients
Oh.
you work with, or the editors of the magazines who want it to look a certain way, right? You've done Maxim, you've done Elle, you've won big awards for L'Oreal.
Yeah.
They certainly have their own brands, right?
Yeah.
And so you probably don't always get to take it for a walk, right? The way you would like to. Are you good with that, or do you feel like that's the nature of the business? The more in demand you become, maybe the more restrictive the industry might be. Do you feel as creative as you used to be when you started out?
I think more creative, because I think as you get higher up, you have some freedom for sure, a little more freedom, because trust comes with that, right?
Yeah.
You're working with these A-list people. There's a level of trust that's there to start with.
Who blows your mind visually? Do you have any inspiration right now from a photographic lens? Like if there's aspiring photographers watching or listening right now, and you were to say, go check out these 2 or 3 photographers, or magazines where you think some of the most beautiful stuff is happening, where would you point them?
One person I admire and look up to is Art Strieber. So he shoots a lot of the publicity stuff, the stuff where I'm aiming to get to his level.
Art Strieber?
Yeah, Art Strieber. Raphael Mizuko is another inspiration for me. And who else? There's lots. You already know they're not coming.
Yeah. Don't worry about it.
They're not dropping in.
Yeah. That's all good. I'm a big fan of Annie Leibovitz. I find.
Oh yeah,
I find that there's a real, however she sets it up and stages it. There's a look to, right from the lighting to the props to the whole thing. I feel like must be a day-long setup or more just to get her lighting right. When did you start to really, really care about? When did you start to realize lighting was integral to not just the hardware and the subject and the camera itself, but that the lighting was critical? And do you agree that lighting is equal to or the second most important thing in any photo?
I think it's the most important thing. It's everything, because that's what creates your mood.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, lighting. That's where that's one of my strengths is lighting. Is that's everything, and from making it a moody photo to beauty light. If the lighting's off, you don't have a photo.
What's your preferred editing software?
I use Capture One Pro for RAW, like shooting tethered into, and then my RAW processing, and then Photoshop is for retouching. And
you're a Nikon guy. Have you always shot on a Nikon?
Yes.
Why not Canon? What's wrong with Canon? Are you an elitist? Well, what's going on? Is there a difference, Eric? Like somebody going pro? Maybe that's not a fair question, but what is the difference?
I don't think there's any difference, to be honest. When someone asks me, "Oh, your camera does great photos," no, the camera just captures what you've created. You can be Nikon, it could be Canon. I mean, Phase 1's the next level of capturing because of the size of the files. But yeah, no, the camera is just a tool for capturing what you see. That's all it is.
Do you find yourself when do you want to grab a camera and just go? Like, do you ever find yourself, at a movie? You said sometimes you're going for a walk or a hike and you do it. What gets you creatively excited, and when do you want to start shooting the most? What triggers that moment? I've seen you sometimes like not even let go of that camera. You've had it all day. Do you ever get in the zone, and how do you trigger that?
I think for me, it's when I'm working with people for sure. That's when I get creative, because that's when I'm inspired. I get inspired by everyone around me. And so I don't think there's so much of just picking up the camera and getting up and go for a walk, unless it was in nature, because that's inspiring in itself.
Sure.
But when my juices get flowing, like my creative juices, that's definitely when I'm in the moment. When I'm in the moment is working with other creatives and building something together. Do
you like to collaborate? We talked a little bit about your project at Warner's and working with a small group, or is the Erich Saide approach to that to photography and stories? Does it have to live in your brain? How much now in your career that you've developed do you like to be collaborative? Is that better? Is it easier?
It's easier, way easier. I've got my strengths and I know where they are, and I've got my weaknesses and I know where they are, and those can be for someone else to take care of. So like I'm full on now, even more so working towards building a bigger team and working more in team atmospheres to create. Because you get a bunch of people putting in their input, the right kind of people putting their input, you create something amazing, right?
Talking to award-winning photographer Erich Saide, you've got an amazing portfolio, and we've been flashing through it as we've been talking of some different people you've worked with. When you're doing the headshot, back to the headshot, and working with actors in particular or celebrity personalities, we can only absorb photography visually, of course,
Yes.
right? And unlike this podcast, it is not audio and video. It's purely visual. So when you are capturing that, do you in your approach to that session, do you play music? Is there talk? Like, what are your tricks? I'm looking for an up and coming photographer. How do you create an atmosphere on the set when you're working with someone that lets them relax and pulls it out? We picture, rock and roll music in the background. What's going on?
That's in my head.
How do you do that? Or is it really quiet and focused when someone's in a session with you? What's that like?
Oh no, I'll find out what kind of music they like, and if I don't like it, then that's too bad for them. Music for sure. I mean, I've got my hair and makeup team. My assistant, everyone's super chatty and makes everyone feel comfortable. Whoever comes in, if they are nervous or someone newer, because it's not always necessarily a acting headshot. It could be just a person's business portrait. I have my go-tos. I can give you those photos to flash. It's a picture of me when I was 21 with long hair.
Oh, you show them that to get them.
And I pull it up.
That'll loosen them up.
And I show them a picture.
Yeah,
and
you did have hair once.
Yeah, it's a picture of me with my long. Yeah,
it's hard to imagine.
Legends of Fall.
Do you? That's right. Actually, I've seen that photo. Do you find that do you have tips for actors who are trying to find a photographer? What should they do if they want to find? I mean, you're not always available, but when somebody wants to get someone at your level or get a great headshot, any tips, any do's and don'ts that somebody should think about in particular around the actors you would advise?
First thing I'd say is don't like a lot of people are worried about their budget, of course, right? So don't always go for the cheapest. That's what you can afford. Find someone that obviously the lighting's great.
Yeah,
these are the key things. If you spend a little extra at the beginning, you're going to get these great shots that'll last you for a few years, as opposed to trying to save a little money and going somewhere that their quality or their lighting isn't quite as good as it should be. They're starting out. Where you kind of pay for what you get. I guess if that's helpful.
Don't take the shortcut always.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Don't take the shortcut.
They're a critical thing.
And then don't get me wrong. There are amazing photographers. Like I know I was great when I was starting out still. So there are people that are going to be more affordable that are great, but just look for that. Look for the
Are you reading or watching anything right now that's inspiring you? Anything that's as a creative storyteller in your medium? Is there any books you would recommend for someone that they should be looking at or thinking about that would help get them, moving in a direction like your career?
Not in the industry. On a personal development side, I do stuff that's kind of what builds me to inspire myself.
Yeah.
Because that's what I do to sort of peel away the fears that you have, I guess, over the years to grow as a human, and then get inspired. I'm doing more lately personal development stuff to get myself going, and then some business, like podcasts. I listen to podcasts all the time.
What about Pinterest? I see a lot of.
Yeah.
Are you on Pinterest?
I am.
What's your vote? You think Pinterest will be here in 5 years?
Yes. Yeah. I think it's growing.
It's not going anywhere.
No.
You think it's critical?
Yeah.
You use it a lot in your business, right?
I use it quite a bit. I'm using it. I'm moving into using it more for sure because that's a great way to get exposure.
Right. Talking with Erich Saide, amazing photographer, has been in the business working with actors, celebrities, icons, all sorts of unique subjects. For 20 years, you've been a pro photographer. It's 2020, my friend. Where are you going next? What's next for Erich Saide? What's next for your career?
My 20 years have made me realize that lining up with 2020 to get a more clear vision of where I'm going, and that's what I'm doing this year, is focusing my career a lot more, working with some business coaches to head down, I guess, working on my printed portfolio currently, which I'll go down to LA in March for some portfolio reviews to go after some of my targets. A lot of U.S. clients come up to Canada to shoot, so that's where I'm going after. A lot of TV movie production companies. And then New York in the fall again.
Right on.
Really, this is my year of tying in all the mistakes I made in the last 20 years and, really focusing my life and my career to really get where I want to go.
You are one of the hardest workers I know, man, and you're going to have a breakthrough that I think a lot of people are going to see the noise. You're one of the most humble creatives I've ever seen, and I think that says a lot about you because you've worked with some amazing people and you're always trying to get it better. So I think people would take a lot from that. Will you come back and do the show another time and tell us what's going on and catch us up with how the portfolio is growing?
100%.
Talking to Erich Saide, photographer at large, amazing all-around storyteller, with a Nikon in his hand or without. Thanks for coming on the show, my friend.
Thank you.
We'll catch you next time.